What I want to discuss is the Maharal, which is going to be the middle approach, if you will. The middle approach, and it's a Maharal in 3 different places. It's one of my favorite Maharals, and it's really, I guess it spoke to me when I was your age also, and something that's, it's not on your sources because I don't have it on my Bar-Ilan, but I guess the Torah Shabbat Peh, and it comes with a good story also. Before we even see the Maharal, you also saw another good answer, which I thought was also interesting, was the Or Zarua. The Or Zarua is very, very important. The Or Zarua is important for guys when it comes to tzitzit. When you want to teach your chanichim about tzitzit, right? The Or Zarua is very important because the Or Zarua says you're actually chayiv, right? It's not only Rav Moshe who says that nowadays the minhag and the minhag that you have to wear tzitzit, but the last part of the Or Zarua says that there's a chiyuv, yesh lomar, that there's a chiyuv midrabanan lechasot midrabanan, right? That's also, even those things that's quoted, that you have to wear tzitzit, I guess it's a high school thing to try to just annoy your parents. So therefore, the easiest thing not to do is to just put on that annoying garment that's sweaty. But the Or Zarua says something before, which I thought was really fascinating. Also, again, within the Brachot issue, which was that if there's a zman shechayav b'hem upamim you're not chayav in mitzvot, so then you have to make a bracha to show. It's very, very interesting. The function of a bracha was to show your chavivut ha-mitzvah, which again, I think many of us, right, on a certain level, you could say, on a certain level, is a contradiction to what we just saw in the Sri Diyesh, but I don't know, when you think about the reason why I make a bracha, usually don't think that the goreim, the thing that obligates you to the bracha, is to demonstrate your chavivus of the mitzvah, right? So whether it's a demonstration, whether it's the machayi, what obligates you, but that's what the Or Zarua is saying here. In Hilchot Birchot HaMotzi Siman Kuf Mem, Upa'amim she'ino chay bahem hilkach kishmagia zman chiyuvam tzarich levarech al asiyatam machmat chibuv, and he quotes the Yerushalmi in Masechet Brachot, the 6th parak, based on a pasuk in this week's parasha, Parak Chav Dalet, minayin shekom mitzvot, that you need bracha. So Rabbi Baruch Kana, in the name of Rav Elazar, vedna lecha ad luchot ha'even haTorah v'amitzvot. There's an equation between mitzvah and Torah, just like a Torah needs a bracha, so too mitzvot need brachot. However, the mitzvot, what are called tmidiyot, which you never, quote unquote, are exempt from, to believe in God, to fear God, to love God, etc. He has a whole list of these mitzvot. Tzedakah is included, kibbutz avim is included. She'en lahem p'tur, then you don't have to make a bracha because the olam chayiv bahen ve'ein shayach bahem chavivut, right? Which I think is a very, very interesting philosophy. Just even, again, it wasn't really within the shiur, but I thought it was just important to bring down, to even discuss. But we're not going to discuss it. Or we are. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the Aruch HaShulchan.
Please.
It's actually also about, basically, I think it's very peculiar that what he says.
Who, the Aruch HaShulchan?
Yeah, so Dafka thinks that something that the whole world does, the Dafka, someone from Yisrael would want to uplift it and say a bracha on it, to say, everyone does this, but I'm doing it for a different reason. And also, I think then it also correlates to what we said about your own ratzon. I mean, I don't think we do anything from our own ratzon. Everything is for. We're not just we're doing everything for a certain reason. So why? I think it's also a peculiar answer.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't imagine.
I think that's two. I think it's two separate things, also, right?
No problem with both of them. That to a certain extent, doing something, requesting of someone from Amishan to do something out of their own ratzon, just seems odd to me.
But if we said that it's because it's something everybody else does, but we make brachot when we eat,
everyone eats.
Everyone eats.
But there you don't say Baruch atah Hashem l'chem achol masher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. You say Baruch atah Hashem l'cholam pori pri agafen, whatever it is. That's a birchas hanen. Here we're talking about the nusach of a birchas hamitzvah. Now again, I think you could argue with it. He basically, his thesis is that it's got to be clear within the act that you're doing. I mean, for example, I could argue that some of the things that are different, the way you can argue how we do kibbutz avim is different, but there are certain universal things that we do that, meaning, for example, if you actually within the halacha of kibbutz avim, there's millions of halachot that are different. The concept that we have kiyum balev and all these different ideas.
But
that are
that was actually the most interesting part to me, because that place of the kavanah and Lev, you would think that being able to.
But that's what he said. That second Aruch HaShulchan. That's why I brought it for you. He described to say that it's got to be clear in your actions. Esher Kiddishanu, the Kedusha has got to be manifested in the actions that we do. And if there's something that are similar, the Kavanah doesn't, that's Balev. It's in your heart, it's in your thought, but it's not within your actions. It's not clear within your actions, and that was his Shita. That's why, if I only brought the Siman Reish Mem, it wasn't as clear, but that's why I brought Tav Chav Zayin also.
Maybe just because there's only that aspect of Kavanah.
That's what he says. That's exactly what he says.
I would think that's what you say about. I don't know.
Right here, you want to say philosophically, if that's the difference, that's dafka or kedusha through that kavanah.
Doing it is because the kavanah is allowed to be.
I hear. Look,
I guess I just don't.
But I'm saying like his statement was that kedusha is something that has to be seen, not only with the thought. But I think a very, very important point. We're up to the middle approach. The middle approach, I believe, is the Kurarye. The Maharal in 3 different places. It's really, as I said, a nice bridge between Parshat Yitro and Mishpatim. The last couple psukim in Parshat Yitro. Okay? Read as follows. And they're... Excuse me. Sorry about that. The Torah at the end says, Vayomer, starting Parachav, Pasuk Yerchet, it says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Ko tomar al b'nei Yisrael, Atem ritem ki min hashamayim dibarti machem. Then it says, Lo ta'asuni ti, Elohei chesed Elohei zahav, Lo ta'asu lachem, don't make any golden images, etc. Pasuk Chaf. Mizbach Adama ta'aseli, make for me a Mizbech Adama of earth. V'zavachta alav et olotecha v'et shlamecha, sacrifice korban olah, shlamim, tzoncha v'tbercha b'chol makom asher askert shemi avoy lachaver achticha. Ve'im mizbach avanim ta'aseh li lo tivneh zen gazit ki charbecha inavtaleh v'techaleh. Translation: if you will make for me a stone mizbeach, make sure when you make it for me, do not hew it, right, with the cherev, because you then being mechalel. You're profaning my mizbeach for the reason, for example, mizbeach, one of the pshatim in Rashi, mizbeach is kapara, to elongate life, and the cherev decreases life. So on this Rashi, there's a breita of Rabbi Yishmael. On this pasuk Chaval, v'im mizbach avanim. And Rashi says, normally, every time it says v'im, what does it mean? If. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Kol im v'im shebet Torah is reshut. If I choose, he says what? Chutz mishlosha. 3 exceptions. The one we just read. V'im mizbach avanim ta'asali. Why is it an exception? Because it's not true. V'im mizbach avanim. Because im here is mishamesh b'lashon ka'asher. You have to. Ka'asher ta'aseli mizbach avanim. Make sure not to do it with gazit. Shari chova alecha livnot mizbach avanim. It's not im. It's chova. How do I know that? In Dvarim it says avanim shleimot tivneh. You have to build it. Second pasuk, this week's parasha. Mishpatim. What's the next one? Im kesef talveh ami. If you will lend money to my nation, et ha'anim imach lo ti'alav kinoshe. Right? Etani imach, that's where it talks about aniyei ircha kodmin, your family comes first, your city comes first, etc. Right? And then don't be one of those people who, are always over them, trying to collect. But im kesef talvet, if I will lend money, there's a mitzvah, chova. If you have the money, you lend it. Right? It's a famous story. I shouldn't say famous story. It's not a famous story. It's a story I've told over to some of my students, that when I first came to Israel, almost 13 years ago. So I was just coming into an Israeli classroom. I was trying to get into the education world here in Israel. And it's actually 2 very quick vignettes. One of them not related, but it's a funny story. So I get there, and it's a really good morah, or mechanechet, what it's really called, mechanechet. and like 25 kids. It's in Harnof, in the Mamad Harnof, if anybody knows it. She's a really good teacher, right? What? I don't remember her name. And you were probably in the class. And I'm sitting there, 25. I was shadowing a special needs child. I was shadowing a boy that I don't remember his name. Moshe, I think his name is. But yeah, I'm talking. It wasn't you. You're looking at me like, yeah. I'm like, it wasn't you. Yeah. And all of a sudden, literally, I was just off the boat, and it was like a couple minutes, and trying to get quiet. So I'm used to, in Hebrew, what would you say? Sheket v'bakasha. Dmama. I didn't know that either. So then at a certain point, what does she scream out? Die! I'm like, oh my goodness! What type of philosophy is this? I'm like writing notes. I'm like, oh my goodness! Like, where am I? That wasn't the real story I wanted to say. What was the other story I wanted to say? Oh, I was teaching. The other one was I volunteered teaching near Talmid and Chashmonim. So it was an 8th grade class, and I was giving a shiur about lending money. So I think I used Panini Halacha a little bit at that point. So I read from them. I read obviously when you lend money, obviously if you have the money, it's a mitzvah. If you have the money, if you don't have the money, then there's no mitzvah. You see these kids, these 8th grade kids, jumping with their etzba, with their etzba. אבל הרב, מה פתאום? יש לך עד 30,000 שאתה יכול לעבוד מהבנק, אין בעיה. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's changed since then. I'm saying, minus. I'm like, what the heck's minus? You know what I'm saying? I'm like a rich American. What are you talking about? What's minus? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? So the bottom line is, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to lend money. So what is this v'im business? What is this v'im? And there's a third v'im, says Rabbi Yishmael. It's a mitzvah to lend money. Ha'vei tavitenu, dei machzor lo, in my mitzvah parsha A. Right? And finally, in the mitzvah, what's the third v'im? V'im takriv minchat bikurim vayikra, chapter 2, verse 14, talking about the minchat omer, the korban omer. V'im minchat bikurim takriv, right? That you have to, and it has to be geras carmel, it has to be parched, etc. Right? You have to do the korban omer. So what is this im? So therefore, all other v'ims is what? If Rabbi Shmuel teaches me the big chiddush here to say that these three are what? Kasher. Ask the Maharal the question that you're all asking. What does the Maharal ask? What? Not, it is why these three, but also it's not why these three. Or go the other way. What? That's why you need the Maharal. Review the lawyer pro. It's like, I don't need Rabbi Shmuel to be so smart, right? Every v'im is if. These three, kasher. Right? So say kasher. Just say kasher. If it means kasher, say kasher. Right? That's the Maharal's question. Give all the kasher. Right? Everyone have a good night. No, that's a great question. Like, what's going on here? Right? Says the Maharal. Yesh lefaresh. I'm not going to read the whole Maharal because times are short and I have a good story to end it also. Yesh lefaresh ma shekatav lashon im af agav dechovahim mibnei she'im yaseh mechova ke'elu. If I only do it Ki'ilu mikayem gzerat melach, if I only do it in our language, kasher tzivcha Hashem elokecha, ein hadavar l'ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God's not happy. V'tzarich shi'aseh mirtzono. Va'oz keshi'aseh mirtzono hu mirutzeh. Ha'maaseh she'yechrachi v'chova אין צריך להביט על שום טעם, רק הוא מקיים גזירת המלך. ואם עושה אילו שלושה דברים, כאילו מקיים גזירת המלך, אין זה דבר. And I'm going to explain to you what he just said in English. Right? What he said is as follows. Normally, if I do my mitzvot, kasher tzivcha Hashem lokecha ma yotze my mitzvah? Yes. Yes. If I do it, kasher tzivcha Hashem lokecha, I'm yotze my mitzvah. However, these three There's an exception. Or to say it differently, is that the ideal way to do it? Only kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha? No. What he said is the middle approach. The middle approach is you need a bottom floor. The bottom floor is kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. And we'll explain why you need that bottom floor in a second. But he believes, you know what the ideal level of Shmiras HaMitzvos is? The Kabbalah HaTorah, which we've done between Yitro and Mishpatim, what we've learned together. Last week we talked about Talmud Torah, Gadol Talmud, which maybe the day Maisa. How do you do mitzvot? It's not only because God commanded to me, but also V'im. Also because I want to. I build that second floor, right? And I say also because I need what to say also. Or I need bocher, or whatever English, whatever Hebrew word you want to say. What? I'll explain in a second. So again, it's also b'derech v'im and not kasher. Right? If it would, I explain. The ideal in all mitzvot, explains the Maharal, is not just the kasher tzivcha Hashem. If I only did this bottom floor, kasher, I'm yotze. The ideal is I'm shomer mitzvot not only because I'm commanded to do it, but also v'im, also because kilu it's optional, because I want to do it. Except these three mitzvot. These three mitzvot. If I do it only because of, if I did it b'derech ka'asher, there is something lacking in my kiyum mitzvah. I can't say kiyamta, V, check, right? Total V. There's something even lacking in that kiyum mitzvah. And he explains that it's in essence, all these three mitzvot, I need the v'im. I need that because I want to do it. For example, the issue of lending money. The whole concept of lending money in Dvarim is what? Is this concept of lo yeira levavecha b'titcha lo. You can't not be happy. What?
It's not yours to get. It's not. You have money for a reason. So.
In the mitzvah of tzedakah or lending money, the mitzvah is not only because I'm commanded to it, it's because I built into the mitzvah. The Torah says I have to do it b'simcha. I have to want to do it. I can't just do it here. Take the mitzvah. And therefore what? Therefore, if I only do it kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha, there's something missing. The concept of avodah, which was the first thing, mizbeach avanim ta'aseh. He explains, if you only do it kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha, this is avodah, which means that you're a servant of God. So if you're doing it without thinking at all, you're only doing it because you're a robot, guess you're an eved up to your mind. Your seichel is not an eved. You worship yourself. Therefore what? Explains the Maharal, each one of these mitzvot, we'll bring it all together, each one of these mitzvot, if I only did a kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha, there's a lacuna, there's a chisaron in the actual mitzvah itself. So I want to explain it, give you a story, and if you don't understand it, you'll ask me the question also, because I have to finish. So what the Maharal is saying is that normally, the ideal in mitzvot is to have this double level. Why have this double level? It can't only be the second floor that I want to do the mitzvot. It can't be the that second floor which a lot of high school kids want, which is, Rabbi, let me just do what I want. Let me just say this bracha what I want, right? Because a lot of times you don't want it, right? Therefore, you need that bottom base to know that you're a mitzuveh and you're mitzaveh from Hashem. You need to know even if you're not feeling up to it. A lot of times in yeshiva, I'm teaching guys, they think, I should get up at 8:15, then I'll be more awake for davening. And I'm like, hello, you're not always going to be awake in life. That's just not the way an eved works, right? By definition, you got to work, you got to learn how to sacrifice. Nice once in a while to go on vacation, get up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, right? It's been a while since I've slept, right? Beautiful children, Baruch Hashem, right? But the concept is you need the kasher, there is the kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. But the highest level, explains the Maharal, is because I also want to do it. And we said that that's why it says here v'im in these three specific mitzvot. Because if it would have said kasher, it's missing the point. If it would have said kasher, it says v'im to tell me that it is intrinsic that I do the mitzvah in the tzura, in the way of not kasher, of only this bottom level, but also because I want to. I'll end off with a story. The story the story was that while getting my master's in social work, I was one of my stops in my stage was in a Merkaz Kashish. This one was in America. I split my my stage. I also did it here, but there was a Merkaz Kashish in Peninsula Center in Long Island. So, excuse me. And I was giving out coffee to older people. I was giving cake to older people. And these people were very interesting. I was the religious one. Like, Rabbi, what makes this kosher? The rabbi bless it. All these great, at 19 or 21 years old, whatever I was, right? They were like, this guy was telling me, you have to start eating greens, stop eating meat. I'm like, for God's sake, I'm 21 years old. Let me eat my steak. You know what I mean? I'm not 90 yet. I had another guy who was like, Sonny, Ari, you see these teeth? I got 20 of these soaking over there. I'm like, oh my goodness. Funny stories. And I'm sure that some of them are just not here with us anymore. It's like many years ago. So the bottom line was that Kathy was my supervisor. And Kathy was Jewish. And I was giving out cake. And she said, Ari, why don't you have some cake? Want to give it around? Take some cake. She was being nice. Cake. And I knew that they got it from the local bakery that was, shady. Didn't have kashrus. And so 2 or 3 times, Ari, why don't you take a piece of cake? So finally I looked at the box. There was no rabbinical supervision. So, Ari, why don't you take a piece of cake? So finally I said, Kathy, I just can't. And if you know anybody studying Avodah sociology here? So in a very good social work answer, what did she say to me? She goes, no, Ari, it's not that you can't. You choose not to. I'm like, oh, I was blown away. I'm like, oh my goodness. Then I came to this Maharal that night. I don't know if that's true. But, but that night, it's like the Malach came to me like the Beis Yosef, the Magid Meshar, right? But that night I realized, you know what? We're both right. I felt like we were both right. I felt that what the Maharal said is that it's true. I can't, and I also, the Derech V'im also choose not to. Everyone should have a good evening.